Try not to get too jealous, Reba. This video is about Daddy Bill. This was my grandfather's truck he bought new in '89. After 20 years, we found it, and I got it purchased last week. You guys can see the link in this description for that build series, which kicks off with this first video as far as doing any modification, repair, restoration. If you've had an OBS or been around them at all, you know there's a couple of things they're notorious for. First one, you see how that door is sagging? Yep, door pins and bushings. Another thing that we always see with them is this detent spring is missing because the shaft that rides on is broken. Also something I've seen quite a bit of, loose steering column, which is the bolts down there by where the tilt is. So we're gonna show you that today as well. Back in the day when I worked on these and they weren't 30 something years old, they were like 5 to 7 years old, I just take some 2-inch tape, run a couple of strips inside here on the fender edge and on the door edge, so whenever I open it up, it'll rest against itself and won't mess the paint up. Since this is 35 years old, I'm almost scared to put tape on it and peel off this original factory paint, which no dents, no scratches. I'm not messing with it. Use a floor jack with a board and some cloth or something, and whatever you need to protect the bottom of your door paint on that floor jack. And then I'm gonna have this little bit of carpet here so I can wedge it in between the fender and the door once I get these pins and bushings cut loose. And I say cut loose because back in the day, what I would do is literally get a die grinder, 90 degree with a cutoff wheel, and just chop these in half and then knock them up and down out of those hinges. These have been replaced at some point because I can see that little circlip on there. So I'll probably can just hit them with a hammer and a punch and they'll drop out of it. The problem is, as you'll notice on yours, this door kind of tapers up above that pin and it's really hard to get to. So you can always resort back to the cutting method. Now I have a body saw that I could cut through that. They're really handy because they won't sling sparks everywhere and potentially damage any of your original paint or your rubber or any of that stuff. Those tapped out nice and easy. I didn't need to pull the clip off the top. I just hit them with the punch. And if you've got your door supported just right, you can kind of see that thing's ready to just fall right out. And this one will pull right up. You just have to worry about the little electrical grommet here, which you don't have to unhook if you use my method. Okay. Detent pin from the factory, they basically just mushroom the top of it with a punch and kind of pinch it onto the upper portion of this hinge so you can't just knock it out of there. We'll end up having to cut this off flush to get this removed. You're gonna have some bare metal in there, so squirt your little paint or dab it on there with your finger just to keep it from rusting out. I am not stressed about it. There's so much dirt on this thing. I don't think paint's gonna stick to anything but bare metal. So when it comes to replacement parts, you've got some options. These are the Dorman part numbers that you can use if you wanna run to your local part store. The 38 416s for the door pins comes with bushings, and then this 38 436 is the door spring since ours fell out because of that broken pin. You can save yourself a bunch of money if you've got some time, and you can go to Amazon. There are kits there that do everything. They'll include the whole nine. Like here are, whoops, I took one out. The 4 door pins and all the bushings, both door detent springs, and both door detent pivot arms all come in one nice little kit. You could probably even find one that has this door spring compressor. You're gonna need one of these to compress that guy to take it out before you service the door pins. But since mine was missing, I will only need it to install the spring once we get this all rebuilt. I took a little off of these knurlings because honestly, doesn't need to be that extremely tight. All it does is hold the detent spring. It's not like your door pivots on it or it supports any weight. It is way too tight of a fit than it needs to be. Ow! Nice and easy. Let's compare these Amazon ones to the Dorman ones from the parts store, which cost considerably more. So there's 2 inside diameters for your bushings here. Now they will go in the same hole, top or bottom on your hinges in your truck, but you need to make sure you use the one that has the larger inside diameter, where it's going to be here, and then the smaller one here. What I don't like about the Amazon ones, you can see like there's that much play, and in the bottom there's a considerable amount of play. Pay close attention. This pin is going to go from the bottom up because you can't really hammer it down all that well. I guess we could, but it's kind of defeats the purpose of how they're designed to be. So your large diameter bushing is going to go up from underneath on this side, and I like to use just a pair of channel locks. Go. You get it pretty close. You just want to make sure don't start with a hammer because you will break them. They're not super strong. All right, on the bottom one, they go on actually the door side of the hinge. Your large diameter one will be at the top and small diameter at the bottom. Now let's see if we can get this door slid back into where it lives. Whoops, let's see, that's gonna go above. This goes below. It's really nice if you can use the buddy system, someone adjusting the height of your door that you're supporting to help the pins line up. And they come with these little spring clips that you drop over the top of them and push them down until they latch into the little groove. Not like that. The best way I found to get these clips to go on is to take like an 11mm socket and sit it in there and tap it with a hammer, because they're not as easy as you might expect them to be. To put your door spring in, you're really going to want to have a ratchet wrench, because basically you set your spring on a table, open this up and compress that spring into it, then tighten it down. But you're not going to be able to use a socket very well, so a ratchet wrench will allow you to put the spring in place and then loosen that to release the spring into place. And that's how the finished product should look. All right, please be awesome. I like it. And it stays open. Now let's fix this steering column, which kind of is a built-in security device, because sometimes the key won't turn if the column is not just in the right spot, if you guys have been struggling with that. Hope the camera angle's good. I think it looks good from here. Let's see what happens. You know what? I never even tested to see if this horn works. Sprayed a little penetrating oil in there so we're not fighting it. This is a 13/16 socket. Yep. What? Wow. Okay. If that steering wheel pulls right off, we're going to be buying a lottery ticket. But we're going to need a steering wheel puller for this. Most tools like this, I've noticed you can buy. Ooh, that was kind of bent. You can buy at your local parts store, and then they let you return it like a rental, which is pretty nice. Yeah. These two teeth that kind of stick out go in these gaps right here. So you just have to hold your mouth just right to get that off. Now, there's a snap ring that goes in a groove on the steering shaft. You have to compress this to knock that off. And that requires another special tool. 1/2 inch. Yeah, it should slide over that one. And as you crank it, you can watch it compress expose that ring that you've got to remove. You'd be better off to pop that thing off with a pick. Here's a better angle of that clip. It'll be down in that groove right there. You use something like this pick to get it out of that groove and then slide it up, and then this plate can come off of the steering shaft. Won't be as much tension as you'd think on this plate. Yeah, that thing's a pain in the butt. All right, you want to be super cautious in here because this stuff is as old as the hills on a lot of these trucks like this one. And the bolts we need to get to are behind a lot of this junk. Start removing some of this stuff. This is the turn signal lever, little brace that comes across. Might be helpful to take pictures before you go to taking it apart, or I don't know, video yourself and then you can watch it back. We'll unplug from the steering column and you can just let that go up a little ways to give you the slack you need to get it out of your way. So you'll disconnect that from this, and then this guy's clipped up on your column. When you unplug this, you pop that loose and that'll give you some slack. You'll see these contacts that ride on the back of this switch cam, and they just, because you notice they're blocking these screw heads, so kind of work those up and down and that'll pull out of place. Don't lose it. That's an easy thing to forget when you put stuff back together. Start by removing the little funny black screw that holds in the tumbler. Don't lose that. You won't find another one like that in your local hardware store. Comes out. So for those of you who are wanting a new ignition, you just got 2 instructions in one with this deal. Big Torx, guys. Let this rest like so. This is one of those points in a project where you're so close yet so far away. You can see the bolt in there that's loose, that like a reverse Torx headed bolt. There's another one clearly right there. I believe there's one more towards the top side, but you just can't get to them until you pull these pivot pins out, which you'll see that that's threaded. And it requires a tool similar to this tilt steering wheel pivot pin puller from Snap-on. This thing's older than half the people watching this video. It's pretty straightforward. You want to run this into that pivot pin itself. Then tighten this nut down to where it creates pressure. It looks like this tool's been used a few times. You tighten this nut down and it'll pull that pin out. All right, so I remove those pivot pins as you guys saw, and then you're gonna take your pick, I have mine handy, and pop loose this collar, because somehow it kind of creates a lock on this steering shaft to this housing assembly. And once you get that broken loose, you'll start seeing a little bit more play, yeah, like that. So we can, I'll have to set this other camera down. We should be able to pull this off now, get it laid out of our way so we can tighten those bolts. And I guess there's another collar that was trying to hold those bearings together. You'll watch a bunch of videos. It'll be difficult for you to probably see exactly what happens right there because there's no way to film it all that easily. So I'm gonna set that down. You can see there's 4 of those Torx style bolts. So that's kind of another semi-special tool you're gonna need. E8, I guess, is the size of that. You'll probably end up having to buy a rail of these guys. But yeah, one more freaking specialty type tool to do this project, but there's probably a reason you'll notice why people drive around with the columns loose so much. It's a ton of work to get to this point. So what you're going to want to do now is back those out, put some Loctite on them, and then run them back in. Don't just tighten them down because you're going to be back here in 6 months. If you ask me, the move is to do one of these at a time. Don't tighten it all the way down so you can still get your other bolts in and out easy enough. I've got all 4 of these now Loctited in and tightened down. I'm sure there's some torque spec somewhere that I couldn't care less about. I did use the orange gel type thread locker because it's a good strength and it doesn't drip everywhere. We should never have to mess with this again. Now, to put it back together in reverse order, I'm not even gonna pretend to try to video that because it's frustrating enough already. Done. You can kind of hear, I guess I've got a horn relay that, well, it sounds like it's clicking, but the horns may be bad. But everything else, I was checking it constantly before you get the whole thing put together. Also, turn your turn signal on. Turn. Make sure it cancels going both directions. Everything else seems to be working fine. Windshield wipers will windshield wipe. So we've got ourselves a successful repair. Nice and firm now. This is probably one of the least fun things you're going to do, but super necessary, and you're going to enjoy driving it so much more when you don't have that wobbly steering column. And you have to be careful because if your truck is pristine like mine, you don't want to be setting greasy tools down and stuff because there's grease all inside these columns, which needs to be there for operational purposes. Maybe get you some rags or towels or something you don't care about, lay it in the floorboard, lay it across your seat so you don't mess that up. Bunch of work ahead of me still to put all these tools up, but at least now the door shuts like a new one. The steering column doesn't wobble like a new one doesn't. And it seems to be having everything functioning properly, which is a win. The comments were pretty strong on the first video in this series whenever we picked this truck up. Everyone wants it to just be cleaned up and left alone. So we are slowly just fixing the stuff that has to be fixed. It's got some run issues that we're going to look at as well, a little stumbling at takeoff. I think an LT4 would probably fix that, maybe with a 10-speed, but an 8 would probably suffice. Hope you guys aren't mad, but this motor's not staying in here. But the rest of it's going to look like this, and everything's going to work, which is what it's all about. I'm probably as excited as you guys are to see the next step of mods, improvements, or restoration when it comes to the Daddy Bill truck. It's going to be a good time. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, and this will be a playlist, so it should auto-play the next video. If not, click this one. This will be the next one in the series when it's available.